I've written extensively on this Joe Biden, Janet Yellen, that's the Treasury Secretary scheme, right, to try to create basically a cartel, an OPEC for politicians, if you will, where all governments around the world have to agree to a minimum corporate tax rate of 15%. And of course, once that principle is established, then politicians get to say, oh, well, what's the definition of taxable income? And oh, by the way, 15% rate, that's not high enough. Matter of fact, they're already agitating for 25%, even higher. And by the way, what really concerns me in the long run, and by the way, the long run might only be a couple of years, they're going to say, oh, this is such a good idea to have a cartel for corporate taxation so we can all agree to fleece businesses at a higher rate. Let's do the same thing for individual taxes and wealth taxes and capital gains taxes. So I really, really don't like this idea of governments conspiring together to try to take more money from taxpayers to prop up welfare states that in and of themselves are guaranteed to lead to fiscal disaster. Now, the bad news, of course, is that governments around the world, by and large, have agreed to this scheme. There still are some T's to be crossed and I's to be dotted. So I'm still, knock on wood, hoping that the whole thing blows up. But Adam Smith told us, 250 years ago almost, that cartels in the private sector don't work because competition means that there's always an incentive for someone to undercut competing firms. Well, the problem is when governments set up cartels, well, governments are the enforcement agencies, so there's nothing to stop them from setting up a cartel, especially if they threaten to blacklist and impose financial protectionism against the small handful of low-tax jurisdictions out there that might otherwise want to resist this scheme by greedy politicians. One bit of background that's probably very important for your viewers and listeners to understand is that beginning with the Thatcher and Reagan tax cuts back in the 1980 or so, right, we had a very virtuous period of tax competition in the world where average top income tax rates came down on the personal level. Corporate tax rates, which used to be 48%, dropped to an average of less than 24%. And of course, the United States finally caught up when we did our Tax Reform Act in 2017, brought our rate down from 35% to 21%. Well, that's been great for the global economy. But of course, politicians have hated that. They don't like the fact that they don't have sort of a, free rein to raise taxes and try to squeeze more money from their people. And that's why the OECD and other bureaucracies have been pushing for a long time to try to undermine tax competition. And unfortunately, they are now making a bit of progress.